Hey, what's up? It's me, Lex, back at you with another Pathfinder video. This is going to be my second and last video covering the book that comes out, I believe, at the end of this week, Lost Omens, Divine Mysteries. Today I'm covering the Mortal Herald archetype. It is a rare level 12 archetype with a very solid amount of feats, as you can see by this spread that's actually across 5 pages in the book, 6 if you count the extra page of lore that it provides. And before we get into anything, I want to say thank you to Paizo for providing the complimentary review copy, but as always, my opinions are my own. So, getting right into it, what is a Mortal Herald is probably the best question to get out of the way. And a Mortal Herald is meant to be a high-level, high-power sort of representative of a god. You carry out what they want in the universe, but in ways other than how a champion or a cleric does so. So, let's get into the additional feats first. There are quite a few of them. This is a very large archetype. It provides a lot of versatility in what you can get into, although it is fairly martial focused, I would say. Is fair to say. It does have a lot of agnostic things as well, if that's what you would prefer to go to, or go for. Every single additional feat that it gains access to is from the Cleric class, and it gains all of them 2 levels later than a player would normally gain access to them. The feats they gain access to are Premonition of Clarity, as a reaction once an hour. When you fail a saving throw against a mental effect, reroll it with a +2 and use the new result. Eternal Bane and Eternal Blessing, which surround you with a constant 15-foot aura of the referenced spell. You can't expand the aura, but you can dismiss it. Resurrectionist, which means, or makes it so that when you restore hit points to a dying creature, or bring a dead creature back to life, you grant them fast healing 5 for a minute. Divine Apex, which lets you touch a worn magic item during daily prep to turn it into an Apex item for one of your deity's divine attributes. And Shared Clarity, which allows you to use Premonition of Clarity, that reaction at the very start when you fail a mental save, to provide all allies within 15 feet of you who failed the same saving throw against the same mental effect the same ability. They can also use their reaction to reroll their save. Just some solid cleric stuff. So now we're going to get into the specifics here for Mortal Herald. The dedication feat at level 12 requires you to be a worshipper of a specific deity and a master in religion or your deity's divine skill. And I like the or there, where it allows you to branch out from specifically the religion skill into whatever your deity is specialized in, sort of. You become bound by your deity's anathema, and you can either choose to become sanctified if they let you choose, or you do become sanctified if they have must be in their stat block, which gives you the according trait, as sanctification does. And then once per day you can cast heal, or if you have negative healing, harm, as a 6th rank innate divine spell targeting only yourself. It only takes 1 action, but you gain the benefits of the 2-action version. And if you would be reduced to 0 hit points but not killed instantly, you can cast the spell as a free action before you become unconscious. So you can give yourself a big boost to your survivability here, even though it is once a day. Heal is a very strong spell for being able to restore yourself, and this is going to be, as a 6th rank version, this is going to be 6d8 plus 48. And so the average for that would be 27 plus 48. It would be 75 HP on average healing for free before you go down. And it automatically heightens as you level up as well to the highest rank that a spellcaster of your level could cast, which is super solid, because that means it's going to be giving you a lot of sustainability. This makes you hard to kill. I also really like the art for this archetype here, just scrolling through. It has Mortal Heralds of a bunch of different gods and what they would look like. As for the next feat, Domain Embodiment is a level 14 feat. It allows you to, during your daily preparations, choose 2 initial or advanced domain spells from any of your deity's domains or alternate domains, and you can cast them until your next daily preparations. That's a lot of flexibility, being able to switch them out between all of what your deity has access to every day. And it's also giving you 2 focus points every day. And it makes you trained in spell attacks and spell DCs as well, if you were not already. And your spellcasting attribute defaults to Wisdom. Next up on the level 14 feats is Fear of God as a free action once per 10 minutes. When you successfully demoralize an enemy, you can ignore their temporary immunity to your demoralize attempts, and your demoralize stacks up to frightened 4 rather than being just a binary frightened 1 or frightened 2. It increases by 1 or 2. This is super duper solid. Even though it's once per 10 minutes, this means that you can demoralize a creature, and as long as you get that first success off and use this as a free action, then you can just fill every extra action you have repeatedly frightening them. And being able to get that frightened up to 4 is incredibly strong. That means you're going to be debuffing them, all of their statistics, offensive and defensive, by 4 to 3, depending on when you were most recently able to keep this up. I think this is a super duper strong ability and something that on its own could define a playstyle. So keep an eye out for that. Flash of Omnipresence here. It is a mythic feat, and I wanted to zoom out real quickly here because the mythic feats that you have access to, I actually have a little thing here. The mythic feats that you have access to, you cannot select those feats unless you are a mythic character. And I wanted to provide a little bit of context here with a couple of panels I have. These are all of the mythic feats. It's 6 out of 29. So even if you're not playing in a mythic campaign, this is certainly a large enough and pretty beefy archetype. And if you are playing a mythic campaign, then this here is going to be the feats that you have access to uniquely. I will point them out as we go along. So, Flash of Omnipresence here is a mythic feat at level 14. Once per hour as a single action, you can teleport to an empty space adjacent to an ally within 100 feet. And if you spend a mythic point as part of the action, you can teleport up to a mile. And when you arrive, any enemies adjacent to you need to succeed at a will save or be stunned 1. I also want to emphasize here that quite a few of these abilities will say against the better of your class DC or spell DC, which means that this is a particularly good archetype to take for the Battle Harbinger Cleric, which is in this book, because your class DC is actually a little bit better than spellcasting DC, which makes it the best DC in the game for these types of effects, where it's a save against class DC or spell DC. It doesn't mean that things are going to be failing their saves particularly regularly. The game does expect saves to be successful in general, but I think it's worth pointing out here that the Battle Harbinger released in this book can make particularly good use of the effects in this archetype and just these effects in general. Next up is Herald's Weapon, also at level 14. Once per hour as an action, choose a weapon you're currently wielding or an unarmed attack, and it becomes wreathed in pure spiritual energy for a weapon, which causes it to deal spirit damage instead of its regular damage. It gains the Sanctified trait, which means that its strikes will also gain the Sanctified trait, so you can start dealing damage to creatures who have a weakness to holy or unholy. And your strikes do an additional 2d4 spirit damage. Pretty sizable damage increase once per hour. Next up is Mortal Ascension at another level 14 feat. This gives you a fly speed equal to your land speed. This is solid enough. I believe it comes a little bit earlier than most of the other like permanent flight feats, but flight at the level that you can gain access to this isn't super hard to gain access to anyway. But either way, it's a very flavorful and very interesting feat. Shield the Faithful, another level 14 feat here. As a single action, once per hour, you gain a 10-foot aura that provides you and all allies within a +1 item bonus to AC, and resistance 10 to spirit damage. And when a creature adjacent to you hits you with a melee attack, or a creature touches you or hits you with an unarmed attack, that creature takes 5 spirit damage. And then at 20th level, the spirit resistance increases to 15 and the spirit damage increases to 10. I do have one note here, which is that I believe this item bonus to AC is meant to be status. We were not provided with any sort of ahead of time errata or clarification, but I just imagine this because you should already have an item bonus to AC from many levels ago wearing armor. The resistance to spirit damage is, of course, somewhat useful, and when creatures damage you with spirit damage, they take a little bit of spirit damage automatically, is solid. It means that you can be on the front line and draw aggro. And this is what I mean when I say stuff like, I think this archetype is more geared towards martial users, even though it is definitely agnostic with some of these abilities enough that you can take advantage of it as a spellcaster. Next up, we're getting into the level 16 feats. Here's Chastise. This is a 2-action activity. It requires you to have the Fear of God feat, and it allows you to chastise the spirit of a foe within 30 feet with the Frightened condition. They attempt a will saving throw against the higher of your class DC or spell DC, and then they're immune for an hour. And unless they critically succeed, they take some amount of spirit damage, and the first time they fail their flat check to recover, the spirit damage doubles. Notably, this is a will saving throw without the mental trait, which makes it a very solid option. Anything that can interface with will without actually being mental is a super strong option against mindless creatures, or creatures in general, because will saves tend to be one of the lower ones. Now, I do also want to point out that the spirit damage values here of 2, 4, and 6 without any sort of scaling, even when they double after that first round to 4, 8, and 12, might look a little low for level 16, depending on what class you're playing. And that's where I want to get into this here, Declare Anathema, the next level 16 feat. This is a 2-action activity. Once per 10 minutes, attempt a religion check against a creature you are aware of within 30 feet, and you declare them anathema. That religion check is against their will DC, so again, you have a pretty good chance of succeeding on this. On a critical success, any creature that attempts to target the anathema creature with a beneficial effect must succeed at a DC 5 flat check, or else have their action disrupted. And this remains basically permanently until it's removed somehow actively. And the creature gains weakness 10 to spirit damage for 1 minute. A success causes the same effect, but only for a minute. A failure, the same effect, but only for a 1 round, and they don't gain weakness to spirit damage. A critical failure, they're unaffected. And I want to zoom out here a little bit and turn on this side here I have, sidebar thing I have here. This is Declare Anathema, and every reference to dealing spirit damage in the archetype. So, as you can see, there's a lot of interconnectedness here, where when you do critically succeed, or normally succeed, and give those creatures 10 weakness to spirit damage, all of these other effects that are connected to it will be exploiting that weakness. It's super sizable, and it's going to be able to build up a lot of damage over time. Specifically, if you can get off a Declare Anathema, a lot of this is going to be, you use your Herald's weapon and Fear of God to get something really weak, and then you go in with Declare Anathema and a lot of these other abilities or strikes repeatedly hitting that weakness and doing immense amounts of damage to your foe. I'm going to turn this note back off now, though, because it is a little obtrusive to the reading experience. Next up, Dive of the Divine. This is a 2-action ability. It requires a fly speed of at least 20 feet, but that does not mean that you have to have taken the Mortal Ascension feat. You just have to have a fly speed. And then you have to be at least 20 feet above the ground to actually use the action. It lets you fly straight down, landing safely in the nearest unoccupied space directly below you, and then all creatures in a 10-foot emanation take spirit damage with a basic fortitude save against the higher of your class DC or spell DC, and on a failure they're pushed 5 feet or 10 on a critical failure. And at 20th level, the damage scales to 10d10 instead of 8d10. Solid enough, and you continue to be able to do some spirit damage, push creatures back. It's a lot of fun. The biggest difficulty here is that it's all creatures instead of just foes, so look out for your allies. Next up is Following Smite as a single action, and you need to have the Herald's Weapon feat. If your last action was a strike made with a weapon or unarmed attack empowered by Herald's Weapon, you can call upon your deity's power and channel it through your weapon. The creature you hit in your previous action has to make a reflex saving throw against the higher of your class DC or spell DC, and they will take spirit damage equal to your level and become knocked prone if they fail. Half your level and not knocked prone on a success, or if they critically fail, they will take spirit damage equal to twice your level, become knocked prone, and clumsy 1 until the beginning of your next turn. Super solid, especially because there isn't a usage limitation on this ability. This is going to be doing a solid amount of continual damage, and being able to knock creatures prone automatically is, of course, always a very strong ability. Next up is Free from Bonds. This requires you to have Flash of Omnipresence. This is the mythic feat from before that lets you teleport. If you are grabbed or restrained when you use Flash of Omnipresence, the creature or effect that is imparting that condition on you takes spirit damage equal to your level. And if you teleport adjacent to a grabbed or restrained ally using Flash of Omnipresence, you can attempt a religion check against a hard DC for the level of the creature or effect that is imparting that condition, and on a success, your ally no longer has that condition. I find it very interesting here that it is a religion check against a hard level-based DC, because that means it's probably, if your ally is grabbed, going to actually be easier than if you attempted to pull them out by, say, repositioning them, where you would have to be going against the grappler's grapple DC to attempt to remove them. Just a hard DC is going to typically be lower than the stat modifiers of a creature. So this is super useful in those mythic games. You can free yourself, you can free your allies, and you can punish enemies who are imparting those. It's very Caden Kalian. Next up is Healing Sanctuary. This requires you to have Shield of the Faithful, which is the aura once per hour that gave a bonus to AC and resistance, and dealt automatic spirit damage as well. When an ally who begins their turn in your Shield the Faithful aura, they gain 10 temporary hit points that last for a round. It's a solid way to provide a aura on the battlefield to kind of strengthen yourself and your team. Yes, okay. Heraldic Proclamation is up next. It is a 1-action spell shape ability once per day, where if the next action you use is to cast a non-cantrip spell, all allies within 30 feet gain hit points equal to double the rank of the spell, and all enemies within 30 feet take spirit damage equal to double the rank of the spell, with a basic will save against your spell DC. Very simple, a bit of healing, a bit of damage. Just an additional effect once per day onto a non-cantrip spell. Solid enough. Next up is Invisible Hand, and this is the last level 16 feat here. This requires you to be a master in stealth. Once per day, when you roll stealth for initiative, at the start of a combat, you can choose to be invisible for 1 minute. Additionally, if you spend a mythic point while beginning the avoid notice exploration activity, you are invisible for as long as you continue to avoid notice. This is another mythic feat, but it is, I think, very solid. The ability to be invisible for 1 minute, and there's seems to be no way to remove this effect. This isn't magical. It doesn't have the magical trait. It is not the invisibility spell. It just causes you to become invisible for 1 minute if you choose once per day when you roll stealth for initiative. And then being able to spend a mythic point while beginning the avoid notice exploration activity is also going to be pretty great, because it's again an unconditional invisibility here, which means that it's going to be very hard to detect you, of course. Now we're getting into the level 18 feats here, and I'm going to take a quick drink of my water because there's so many feats. Alrighty. Getting into the level 18 feats here, we have Deific Font. As an action, once per hour, you become drained 1 or increase the value of your drained condition by 1. And before the end of your next turn, if you cast a spell of 4th rank or lower, you don't expend the spell's slot when you cast it. Or if you cast a focus spell, it does not cost a focus point. The spell loses whatever tradition trait it would normally have and gains the divine trait. Once per hour, being able to gain a 4th rank or lower spell throughout an entire day at the cost of the drained condition continually increasing is not terrible. I would point out, though, that at this point you have access to 9th rank spells, and spells of 4th rank or lower are probably incredibly easy to purchase scrolls for, so I wouldn't be using this too liberally, and particularly because you have to still have that spell either in your repertoire or prepared. It's just that you don't expend the slot. I think that the primary benefit here is going to be being able to cast a focus spell without expending a focus point, because now you can take advantage of unique focus spells like a Psychic's or an Animist's. Not a bad ability, not at all, but something that you'll want to look out for. Divine Presence is next. This is a stance with a single action. You gain the bearing of a god. As long as you are in the stance, you have a 5-foot emanation that has the aura trait. Whenever you take an action, you can take it from your space or any space within the emanation as if it were the space you occupy. An enemy that ends its turn completely within the emanation is off guard to your strikes, and you can sustain the emanation to increase its radius by 5 feet up to a maximum of 15. This is a lot of fun, and particularly because it doesn't have any sort of restrictions on how many times you can use it. Being able to spend your first turn letting the enemies come to you while you establish your divine presence and expand it out to a 15-foot aura, automatically off-guarding creatures that approach you, being able to attack things from farther away. It's a lot of fun, and I find myself drawn to the concept of having this aura of your presence being able to act within this space. A lot of fun. Next up, Eyes of God. You are constantly under the effect of an 8th rank See the Unseen and True Sight spell, and you gain a +4 status bonus to your sense motive checks and your perception DC against lies. Specifically, having these at 8th rank is super great because most creatures, whether in stat blocks or otherwise, even if tailor built, do not prepare See the Unseen, do not prepare invisibility or polymorph effects or illusions at a higher rank than they need to. Sometimes they will by a rank or two to make it harder to counteract, but having this all the way up at 8th rank means that it's going to be very hard for things to be able to fool you. Next up is Flash of Omniscience as a free action when your turn begins, and this is a mythic feat, so look out for that. You spend a mythic point and you immediately learn the resistances, weaknesses, and immunities, including the amounts of the resistances and weaknesses, and any unusual weaknesses or vulnerabilities of a single creature you can see. This is super solid for especially spellcasters, but any component of a party that is going to be gaining information and sharing it is going to benefit from this, being able to tell what you should and shouldn't use, if there are any things in particular that can devastate your opponent, you know, being able to tell this vampire's weakness to garlic, running water, what have you, so that you can effectively use those tools. Super solid, even though it is a mythic ability. Next up is Glory on High. This is a 2-action ability. This also requires a fly speed of at least 20 feet, but no actual feats. You fly straight upwards up to your fly speed and then interact to draw a weapon or gesture with your hand or a worn holy symbol. Each enemy within a 60-foot emanation must attempt a will save against the higher of your class DC or spell DC. And regardless of the result, the target becomes immune to Glory on High for 1 hour. I find this a very interesting feat, personally, because, specifically because of this, fly straight upwards up to your fly speed, but then it's a 60-foot emanation, so you don't want to go particularly high, but it gives you the option to, whether you want to or not, so it's no harm, no foul, just a little interesting to me. The effects being on a success on their save, they become dazzled for 1 minute. On a failure, they become blinded for 1 round and then dazzled for a minute and take 10d6 mental damage. And on a critical failure, they become blinded for 1 minute, dazzled for 1 hour, and take 20d6 mental damage. The temporary immunity here means that you're not going to be able to spam this to kind of pull out the blinded effect, but blinded is a very devastating effect to apply, and this is some sizable damage as well. As I've said, also class DC or spell DC means that some classes are going to have a really good time being able to wield this, particularly Battle Harbinger. Next up is Guiding Words as a single action once per 10 minutes. Choose an ally within 30 feet and attempt a diplomacy check. The DC is equal to a hard DC of their level. On a success, the first time they make an attack roll before the end of their next turn, they roll the attack twice and use the better results, and then they become immune for 10 minutes. I find it very interesting that it both has a frequency and a temporary immunity of 10 minutes. I feel like one of these is probably not meant to be there. Either that or it's like this so that if you have multiple Mortal Heralds in the party, they can't repeatedly put it on the same person. Either way, it's a solid enough effect. It lets you give someone else True Strike for just a single action once per 10 minutes, as long as you can beat a hard DC check, which is not particularly difficult to do at these higher levels. Just want to look out for that frequency and the fact that you do still have to make that check. Next up is Marked for Rebuke. This is a 1-action spell shape. You declare an enemy fit for further punishment in the sight of your deity. If your next action casts a spell that deals damage, one creature of your choice that takes damage from the spell is marked for Rebuke until the end of your next turn, which gives them weakness 10 to all damage, and they become immune to Marked for Rebuke for the next 24 hours. And I would have to double check myself on this, but I believe weakness 10 to all damage, weakness, would mean that if you can deal multiple types of damage with the same attack, you can trigger that weakness multiple times, because the inverse works for Champion's Resistance, where it's resistance to all damage. It means that if you take 7 fire and 7 slashing, then it reduces each by however much. Let me double check here. If you have a weakness... if more than one weakness would apply to the same instance of damage, use the highest. to the same instance. So this is only one weakness, but it's applying multiple times to the same instance of damage, which is why it bypasses. So yes, marked for rebuke here if you can do something that creates an immense amount of damage. For example, if you marked for rebuke a creature and you have 3 different damaging runes on your weapon, one for cold, one for fire, one for acid, and then your weapon on its own, of course, deals slashing, and you strike them, then you'll be doing 40 additional damage because you're proccing that weakness 4 times by dealing 4 different types of damage. It's a lot of fun, and particularly when you then stack up with the rest of your party. All of them also have 3 damage runes. Now you've done 160 damage with this weakness just from a single strike from each of you. I can see why it has the immunity for 24 hours. Next up is Stand for the Fallen. As a reaction, when an ally takes damage that would bring them to 0 hit points, stride twice to be adjacent to them. You can use any other type of movement ability if you have the corresponding type. And then you take the damage that would have brought them to 0 hit points, although you gain resistance to all damage against that damage equal to your level. So you get to essentially champions react and interpose yourself to completely protect your ally and reduce the damage. Although only when it would bring an ally to 0 hit points. It doesn't have any sort of frequency limiter, which means you can repeatedly use it as long as they don't get brought down before you regain that reaction. Next up is Ease the Burden, and now we're getting into the 20th level feats. As you can see here, there are quite a few of them, 6 of them in fact. Ease the Burden is a 2-action activity once per hour where an adjacent creature regains 100 hit points and reduces their drained, clumsy, enfeebled, frightened, and stupefied conditions by 1 to a minimum of 0. It does what it says on the tin. It eases the burden, heals them quite a lot, removes basically all of the named dangerous conditions that you could want to remove. Solid feat. Although having to be adjacent rather than have them within your reach is definitely something you're going to want to look out for. Next up is Enter Divine Realm, and I actually have a note for this after I go over it. This allows you to cast Interplanar Teleport once per day as an innate divine spell with a casting time of only 1 minute. You act as the planar key for the destination. You travel only to your deity's realm. You and the other targets of the spell always appear in the center of your deity's realm, and you, but not necessarily your allies, are immune to all of the realm's harmful conditions, like toxic air, extreme temperatures, etc. You can return to your previous location by spending 1 minute picturing your destination, and you can bring up to 8 willing creatures back with you in this way. They need not be the same targets as the previous casting. And now I want to bring up here both the spell. It's a rank 7 spell. Normally it's a casting time of 10 minutes. It requires a planar key. And you target up to 8 willing creatures within 5 feet. And it allows the targets, which you have to be one of, to move to a different plane. Usually it causes you to appear 1d20 times 25 miles from the last place one of the targets was located the last time you traveled to the place, or a random location entirely if it's your first time going there. And it doesn't provide a means of return travel, although casting it again allows you to return to your previous plane unless there's extenuating circumstances. I wanted to compare this specifically to the level 20 Cleric feat, Avatar's Audience. This feat lets any creature you encounter know instinctively that you speak for your deity, allows you to conduct the commune ritual to contact your deity without paying any cost and automatically getting a critical success, and it allows you to cast Interplanar Teleport once per day, only to travel to the realm of your deity, casting is only a minute, using your religious symbol as a planar key, and you appear exactly where you want to be. And if you're in your deity's realm, due to the spell, you can return to the point you left when you cast it by spending a single action with the Concentrate and Divine traits. So, as you can see here, Avatar's Audience is somewhat a stronger feat in a lot of ways. It has the instinctive knowledge that you speak for your deity. It has the commune ritual with an automatic critical success. You appear exactly where you want to be, and it allows you to return using only a single action. However, Enter Divine Realm does have its own benefits. Notably, it is that... Here we go. You are immune to all of the harmful conditions, which the Cleric Feat Avatar's audience does not do. It also allows you to bring up to 8 willing creatures back with you in that way. Which I think is distinct enough, particularly if your game master is the type to be more realistic in how they run their world. Being able to enter Divine Realm and bring back up to 8 willing creatures means that you can bring back some of your deity's creatures to aid you in a difficult battle. Once per day, you go and talk to your god and you're like, hey, I need some help. Can you lend me some angels or demons, whatever? And then they give you some and you go back, which Avatar's audience does not have the ability to do. Next up is Flash of Omnipotence. This is the next mythic feat and the second to last one. As a free action, when your turn begins, spend a mythic point, and until the end of your turn, any damage you deal ignores all of the target's resistance and immunities, and triggers the target's highest weakness if they have no resistance or immunities. It's a lot of fun being able to deal some extra damage, bypass immunities, which is not something you see very often. And I'm back. I got interrupted by a Pathfinder game, actually. So, continuing onwards, we have Herald's Strike at level 20. This is a 2-action activity that requires you to have Herald's Weapon. You activate Herald's Weapon, ignoring its frequency limitation, and make a strike with your transformed weapon or unarmed attack against a creature. If you hit and deal damage, they need to make a will save against the higher of your class DC or spell DC. If the strike was a critical hit, they use a degree of success worse. And regardless of the result, they become immune to the strike for 10 minutes, but you can still use it. So, if we go over here to Herald's Weapon, once per hour restriction, and this allows you to activate it no matter what. It bypasses the frequency, and then you will gain the benefits as such. As for the actual effects, on a success, they take 3d10 spirit damage and become dazzled for a round. On a failure, they take 6d10 spirit damage and become dazzled for a round and drained 1. And on a critical failure, they take 12d10 spirit damage and become blinded for a round and drained 2. I think that this is a solid tool for ensuring that you can use your Herald's Weapon as consistently as possible, although it affects itself as just some bonus damage and potentially blinding, dazzling, and draining. Definitely not the strongest option, but it is going to add some extra stuff for you, rather than getting in a 3rd strike in a turn or a 2nd strike. You can just pile on some extra damage and potentially protect your party. But more importantly than anything else, you can get that spirit damage up and running so that you can be taking advantage of things like Declare Anathema as frequently as possible. Next up is Moment of Apotheosis. This is just a level 20 archetype feat that allows you to cast Avatar once per day as an innate divine spell. This lets you turn into the Avatar stat block of your deity as a battle form. It's a super solid spell. And it's giving you a 10th rank spell, even if you're not a spellcaster, which is definitely interesting. And there's a lot of roleplay that can come with the Avatar spell as well. I do wish that there was like some kind of adjustment where maybe it lasted longer or something, but I know that that's not usually the ballpark of where they go. That's just a desire that I had looking at this for like flavor. And then finally, the last level 20 feat, Spark of Immortality. This is quite possibly the most potent you can't die feat in the entirety of the game, although it is a mythic feat and the last one. It makes it so that you only die when you reach dying 5 or dying 6 if you have the Die Hard feat. Upon your death, your body and soul are transported to bask in the presence of your deity, and your god can decide to rebuild your mortal form and return you to the point of your death or some other safe location, or allow you to rest as an honored guest in their realm until you are needed once more. Typically, they'll restore you if whatever quest you're undertaking, such as defeating a malevolent tyrant or returning a stolen artifact, remains incomplete. Notably here, of course, it's mythic, it's level 20, it's going to be overboard, but as far as I can tell here, because it's a god and they can just decide to rebuild your mortal form, this essentially means if you die, you'll be returned to the place of your death, fully rested, fully restored, basically immediately as soon as you die, as long as your god still needs you to do something. So definitely a lot of fun there. Now, as for the overall review of the archetype here, let me just scroll out to the Mortal Herald. I have a few notes. So let me turn off all of my older notes and turn this on first. So first things first, between the abundance of spirit damage, as you can see here throughout the archetype, and different ways that you can play with it, there are a lot of potential ways that you can take advantage of that, a lot of interconnectedness there. There's additional interconnectedness, and of course this is probably to do with the fact that there are 29 feats in this archetype. It's very sizable. But as well, I have this additional note here for all of the feats that are directly connected to other feats. Flash of Omnipresence with Free from Bonds, Fear of God to Chastise, Herald's Weapon to Following Smite and Herald's Strike, and Shield the Faithful to Healing Sanctuary. There's a lot of interconnection in this archetype, and I think it definitely leads to a very flavorful concept here of like building up your deific connection and being able to serve your deity. I think that there's a lot of availability here as well for different ways to express your devotion to your deity. I do like that even though it is, I think, a little more martial leaning, there are absolutely some spell shapes and general use feats throughout. I like that it can function as a mythic destiny as well. So if you want something deity related, but you don't want to go for the godling dedication, it will still be a rare archetype, but it gives you a whole nother avenue of options. And additionally, a lot of these options are really great things to, if you're a game master, potentially give to a devoted cleric or champion or other religious character as a reward. Give them, once per day use of Flash of Omnipresence, or give them Domain Embodiment, or give them Herald's Weapon. Fear of God, maybe not, it's a little strong. But all of these options, I'm finding as we get more and more releases regarding the mythic system and the different archetypes that build on it, I'm finding are super strong ways to characterize a character and super awesome rewards even for non-mythic campaigns that you can insert into your games as feat rewards, because I've always found that rewarding players with things other than just gold or connections can be a lot of fun. And so even if your games are lower level or are not at this mythic tier of play, I think that this is a great addition alongside all of the other mythic destinies. And again, it doesn't have to be a mythic destiny as well, so there's a lot you can do with this. That's all from me, though. This is a great archetype, I think. A lot of very fun ideas here. I I am looking forward to being able to implement and build off of some of these ideas in my own games, and I hope that it adds something to yours as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video, subscribe if you would like to see more, toss me a few bucks on coffee if you want to support me, and I will see you all next time. See ya. See ya.